Happy Friday, and welcome here to another edition of Husker Online Headlines. Sean Callahan, Steve Sipple. We're finally going to get a nice weekend. It's going to be, hopefully, you would think a scrimmage going on here in Lincoln, but just a good weekend to get out and about. Last weekend was kind of rough.
So no word on that, though? No word on the scrimmage?
Well, they don't really say, but they have to do two of them before April 26th. And next week, they only practice on Tuesday and Thursday.
Almost has to happen. Yeah.
Again, my conspiracy theory was Rule probably didn't want to scrimmage in front of 1,000 high school football coaches.
Yeah, and he wasn't available. He hasn't been available this week. We could have asked Holgerson that question, I guess, but
he probably would have actually answered it.
Yeah. So we don't know. Saturday, maybe there'll be a scrimmage. We'll find out from the big man.
Yeah, it's been a big week of practice, big week of new storylines. We're going to get into that in the show here, along with some other NIL transfer portal things. But before we get into the headlines, we're brought to you by StayHome.Care. If you're not familiar with StayHome.Care, they provide in-home care to you, your loved ones, family members. They come right to your house, do simple tasks like cooking, cleaning, laundry, grocery shopping, give you a ride to a doctor's appointment, pick up prescriptions. It's never too early. You might have a loved one that could be close to needing a service like this. Call them. It's 402-205-2233 and learn more about StayHome.Care and the services they can offer you. They are the title sponsor here of HuskerOnline Headlines, but let's get into headline number one. Dana Holgerson lays down the running back picture, and we had talked about this for a while. Obviously, Emmett Johnson is RB1. No one's going to debate that, speculate that battle because Dante Dowdell's long gone. But RB2 has been kind of a question until Thursday. And both Dana Holgerson and running backs coach E.J. Barthel said, Kwinten Ives has really emerged. He's the guy. In fact, Dana Holgerson said the other players are still kind of like young players, still learning what they're doing. So it shouldn't be a shocker in the sense you're talking about Kwinten Ives now going into his third year in the program. Mekhi Nelson, who would be in that conversation, he's only been at Nebraska for about 10 months.
Right. He's young, redshirt freshman. So I don't know. We assume things. We do. You, media. We do a lot of that assuming, and I think we assumed that Kwinten Ives was probably number two, but until you hear it, you don't know for sure. And the way it was portrayed is that Ives is clear number two. Now, he's not really, he's obviously going to be pushed to a certain degree, but there's a pretty clear pecking order at the top. Emmett Johnson, Kwinten Ives. And then there's that group of guys. Mekhi Nelson, you mentioned Jamarian Parker, Connor Booth. Jamarian Parker's a true freshman. Connor Booth's a true freshman. Kenneth Williams is a sophomore walk-on. Is actually in the picture. Parker is sidelined right now, Jamarian, with what Holgerson characterizes an injury that is nothing major.
Yeah, and I think he's adjusting to the level and to the commitment.
Absolutely.
And it takes time. And I think there are positions where you have to be careful to say, like, who's number 1, 2, et cetera. But when you break it down and what we know, running back, I think it makes sense. What did Kwinten Ives do in the bowl game? He looked pretty good. He scored a touchdown. So it shouldn't be a huge shocker. I think the only thing we were waiting on is, could Jamarian Parker be one of those rare breed freshmen? Yeah. Could Connor Booth come in as a freshman? Could Mekhi Nelson make a big jump? They all could. But that's where things stand right now. So, I'll toss this to you. Let's say Nebraska has 8 possessions and a half in Arrowhead Stadium.
Okay.
How many series of the 8 are you going to give Emmett Johnson, and how many would you give Kwinten Ives?
6 for
6
Emmett.
And 2.
Yeah. Yeah. Right now. You have to, that can change, depending on how Ives looks when he gets a ball. But yeah, right now that there's a lot that goes into this story. There's a lot that goes into the conversation, really. Like people I saw on our message board were saying, God, I remember when true freshmen running backs would come in and play. It was a little different back then because you didn't have the back then. So I'm talking about the 80s, 90s. You didn't really have the pass blocking element.
No, all their pass plays actually came out of run set, like a play action where it looked like a run play.
Right. So that wasn't as pronounced of a challenge. Now they're catching the ball out of the backfield. They're expected to. Ives at 6'3", 212. You heard EJ Barthel say he's really good running choice routes. I don't even know what a choice route is, to be honest. But do you know what a choice route is?
Yeah, you make a decision and go to the open spot. So the running back runs a route, and then he decides where the opening is.
I'm sure he can run other routes too. Ives, I think, probably pass protection and pre-snap, what he's supposed to see, post-snap, what he's supposed to do. I think that those are probably challenges. He's in his third year now. And hey, Holgorsen, we're kind of burying the lead here. Holgorsen just lays stuff out, Sean. He just lays it out. He said, I go back to last season when I was here for he said 3 games. He was actually here for 4. He said he wasn't a guy that we could count on. He was talking about Ives. He wasn't a guy that we could count on at that moment. Now he is. What happened is they had the December bowl practices and then January, February, whatever they're doing then. But God, think about how critical bowl practices are for a guy like Ives. He might not be in this position if they didn't have a whole December.
Heinrich Harburg, Jalen Gramstad.
Oh, God, yes.
You go down the line, Donovan Jones.
Yeah.
There's some players
that emerged.
Got Ochoa,
right?
Jordan Ochoa, Caleb Benning. They got good reps over that bowl month.
For too many years, that was not a part of the Nebraska experience, that bowl month.
It's like an extra, it really is like an extra spring.
Oh, no question about it.
It's a little different, but it is. And
now more valuable.
Here's the difference with bowl month now. Coaches aren't on the road recruiting anymore.
They're just coaching their ass off.
So in December, everything's done in Lincoln. There's no more flying around the country and having graduate assistants running the practices, and then some coaches stay and some coaches are out. Everyone's in Lincoln. So the bowl, like Dana Holgorsen did say that. He goes, this is the first time I ever actually got to work a bowl month.
Isn't that something?
Where, normally you're scrambling, and that was a positive change. I feel like the NCAA, there's a lot of changes that haven't been positive, but that one actually worked out well for the NCAA.
Yeah. As far as Ives go, again, he didn't do a lot in the bowl game, but he did score that touchdown that you mentioned, 2-yard touchdown run that got overshadowed because the PAT got blocked. It was kind of a nice story. The kid from Beverly, New Jersey, playing at Yankee Stadium with friends there, family, goes into the end zone in the second quarter, and then the PAT got blocked. And that's right, I've scored a touchdown. It was kind of unfortunate, but he did derive confidence from it. Holgorsen said that, and then it carried over. This is a big situation for EJ Barthel too. This is his guy. This is EJ Barthel's guy. Barthel recruited Ives to UConn. And then when Barthel moved here in November of 2022, he kept recruiting him and said, hey, come to Nebraska. Ives said, if I'm being honest, I don't know. I didn't know where Nebraska was on the map. He said he had, and a lot of kids from the coast probably would say that. But he wasn't highly recruited. It was UConn, Monmouth, Nebraska. So pretty good story.
All right, let's take it to headline number 2. And again, we're brought to you by our title sponsor, StayHome.Care. Call them to learn more about their services at 402-205-2233. They're there for you and your loved ones. We're also brought to you by BetterHelp. And, sometimes you got a lot going on your mind, and you just need to talk about it. You need somebody to help you through the struggles. It could be at work. It could be at family. It could be, something else that's bothering you, but you don't have anyone to talk to, and you don't have time to go somewhere and set up an appointment. And, you don't want to be out and about in public. You want it private. Well, BetterHelp does all that for you. They help you, number one, find a therapist that matches you and what you need. Number 2, you do it on your own time. You do it at home. You do it on your personal device. You do it whatever works for you. And they're there to help you through those issues and problems that you might be dealing with. If you have never tried BetterHelp, visit their website at betterhelp.com/Husker today, and they're going to get you 10% off your first month. Again, that's betterhelp.com/Husker, and you'll get 10% off your first month of BetterHelp. Thank you to BetterHelp for sponsoring us here on the Friday edition of Husker Online Headlines. Let's take it to number 2. A top 6 at wide receiver emerges, and we can thank Dana Holgorsen again for
God bless him,
giving us some real information.
Yeah, seriously. I mean, yesterday, really, those two position groups, it kind of crystallized what's going on. There's still some jobs to win, et cetera, but he gave you a really good idea of what was going on at running back and then a really good idea of what was going on at receiver.
Well, and it all kind of crystallized, I would say, with the Hardly Gilmore thing, getting him out of the picture. Because look, the rest of it makes a lot of sense. Dane Key, Isaiah Hunter, Ja'Cory Barney. Those are 3 guys that are going to play. Nobody's going to contest that.
3.
Janiron Bonner played
4.
last year. He's kind of a hybrid type player. But the real new nugget we learned, Ja'Cory Barney, I think I mentioned already.
They did.
But the 2 true freshmen, Isaiah Mosey and Cortez Mills, they're here. And I wouldn't rule out like Quinn Clark either. I think Quinn Clark could gather himself up in that rotation as we learn more about him.
What about Keelan Smith?
Keelan Smith, is he hurt right now?
He's hurt right now.
Yeah. So, Jackson Carpenter's been bothered in spring, so you can't really bring him in that conversation right now. Jeremiah Jones is not here. Demetrius Bell is another name not to sleep on, because obviously we know he's got ability, but he was hurt.
God, they got some guys in that room.
But we at least know of 6 names that have emerged, and for Dana Holgorsen to come out and say that Cortez Mills and Isaiah Mosey are going to play as true freshmen, and they're going to help us, and they're as good as anybody we have in one-on-one drills and what they do. I thought that was a really, really big nugget of information.
Yeah, I think we kind of knew 5. And then, we knew 6 if Gilmore was in the picture. What I'm getting at is it's almost like Mosey jumped into the discussion, right? We weren't talking much about Mosey. We were talking a lot about Mills. I already figured before Dana talked that Mills was going to be in the rotation. It's Mosey that's sort of, I don't know. What I kind of see is Mosey's the Gilmore replacement, basically. That's the way it is in my mind. We weren't talking about Mosey much. And then he said that yesterday, he being Holgorsen. He said that what he said was, though on one-on-one reps, those guys, Mills and Mosey, probably have the highest percentage success rate. Very rarely do DBs get their hands on those guys. He said they're not very strong. So the contested catch stuff is probably
50-50 balls.
Is not what you want at this point. He really gives you a lot to think about, Holgorsen. So they're good in one-on-one, not great on contested balls yet because they're little. They got to get bigger and faster, or bigger, maybe not faster, bigger.
Lift. I mean, Cortez Mills is a kid that probably never lifted weights, and that's the norm. I would say Florida. Like it's more normal for high schools to have, especially in some of these places like Florida where the kids aren't used to lifting like in a true.
Do they lift at all?
I'm guessing they lift a little bit here and there, but a true program regiment, where you're in there 4 days a week in the off season, following a program, trying to make gains, doing a diet. That's not the norm. I mean, it is the norm in some states like Georgia, and I'm sure Texas has a lot of schools that are like that. But yeah, it's, I think about like when we were in high school, you'd have to be in the weight room at 6:30, and
at Omaha Grove,
in
Columbus, it wasn't
6:30 in the morning, and we had probably a 95 to 98% attendance rate for our team. But as I've grown older, I've learned that that's not the norm. I mean,
Mills is from Homestead, Florida. Are we going to be getting a call from the Homestead coach?
Well, in Florida, those kids don't have to lift weights. It's this pure skill talent. I mean, I when you go down to Miami and you watch a camp or an event, it's just unbelievable about
the speed.
Like I remember at FIU, Butch Davis was running a camp there when he was the coach at FIU, and it was an Adidas camp. So all the Adidas schools were there. We were there. I was with Greg and Nate Klaus, and it was at night, and I had never seen so much skill talent. And they didn't have names. They didn't have names on their jerseys or numbers, just white T-shirts. that's at FIU.
Uh-huh.
So for all the coaches there, they're trying to figure out who these kids are.
Yeah.
Imagine 800 kids
Oh, that would be
running around on like multiple fields, and they weren't given the coaches rosters.
Well, I hope the coaches had like notepads or something.
They were, and they were just writing down numbers of guys. And then as the camp would progress, you would see these coaches to run up to the numbers they like to get their name and information to make sure they tracked them.
Wow.
Butch was he did the camp, but he didn't want people knowing who these kids were.
Is that right?
Because there's that much talent in Florida.
Oh, God.
But like Mike Riley that night told me, he goes, there's a lot of talent here, but we don't know who these kids are. We don't know their names. We don't know their stories, their backgrounds. So there's a lot more that goes into it but you find a Cortez Mills, but think about guys from Florida before, like Francois when he came here.
Francois. Yes. I think about Frost when
Fleming.
Yeah. First name.
Oh yeah. Marcus Fleming.
Marcus Fleming. Yeah. A lot of those kids. I think about Frost when he was thinking about the job. It's not like I talked to him a lot. When we think about Nebraska, when he was thinking about the job, I remember the phone call distinctly, and Frost wouldn't mind me sharing this. He wrestled with it, whether to come here. And a lot of it was because of what you're saying. He said, Sip, I mean, I can literally roll out of bed and walk and find receivers here. He's in Orlando. And that's what you're talking about. He got enamored with that in his offense. He brought some of those kids here, right?
And not all those kids fit here.
No, they don't.
Like Jaden Francois was an electric athlete.
Mm-hmm.
And literally it was the 2020 summer.
Mm-hmm.
Who wasn't miserable that summer? It was an awful summer. And
it was.
You shipped those kids from Florida to Lincoln, Nebraska in January.
Oh, God. I remember it vividly because I worked downtown and I'd see those kids roaming around downtown with nothing to do.
And Francois in the summer, it was like early summer, literally just had somebody take him to the airport at 3 a.m. and he hopped a flight back home.
Is that right?
And he left. So that's the thing. I mean, the talent is, you're going to find Cortez Mills players, but you got to make sure they fit in and blend in here. And I think they're doing a good job, at least right now, with this group of Florida athletes, what they've done the last couple of years.
And then Mosey has his dad here, Jamar Mosey, Isaiah Mosey. It helps that his dad's here. Mosey's interesting to me because I mean, if you watch his film from high school, he can play running back. He did play some running back. So he's going to be a great run after the catch guy. There's the receiver breakdown. Cortez Mills and Isaiah Mosey, 2 true freshmen who are part of the picture. You pretty much know who the 6 are, I think. I hope that Rule's not watching this going, you guys are full of it. There's other guys, too, that are in that group.
Yeah, there's a lot there, but I think the receiver position is one of the strengths of this team, along with Dylan. I mean, you've got a quarterback and you've got everything. Yeah, it's going to be fascinating to kind of watch all this come together. All right, before we go to headline 3, again, HuskerOnline headlines brought to you by StayHome.Care. They are there for you, your loved ones, as they're there to help you through all the things that you might need. Call them at 402-205-2233 to learn more about their services and what they can do for you. That's StayHome.Care. Okay, headline number 3. This is clearly becoming Dylan Raiola's football team. And look, the last couple of years during the spring, you really couldn't say that. We tried to force feed quarterbacks to make it their football team before it really was their football team. I think we tried to do that with Jeff Sims when he first got here.
Well, they
brought him to Big Ten Media Days.
Yeah.
I think with Casey Thompson, taking everybody out to eat and doing all this stuff, like these guys had good intentions, but you never got the impression it was always their football team. Like it was kind of manufactured to be their football team. Where a year ago,
Casey's more than Sims, though, right?
Casey, man, like.
He kind of was the guy, right? He kind of presented himself that way.
Yeah, like
really well, by the way.
He came in and immediately took everybody out to eat.
He was good that way. These guys, they come here, they're out so fast you don't talk about them much. He was one of the more intriguing players I've ever covered. he was incredibly intelligent. I mean, he could really woo you, you know. I think he did a lot of that.
Yeah, he you know, and he had some good numbers. He did some good things.
Oh, he's pretty good.
Took some hits.
Yeah.
But anyway, Dylan Raiola a year ago, he at least recognized the spot that he had to earn the job. He wasn't trying to make it his team yet because it wasn't his job. But now that he's played a whole year, you're really seeing him take ownership and leadership of this locker room, really, with just how he presents himself. And I thought in Isaiah Hunter's comments yesterday really took me back, just hearing how impactful Dylan Raiola has already been on Isaiah Hunter to the point where he's going to be in my wedding someday, he said.
He said, it was funny. All the question was, I asked Hunter, how would you describe Dylan to people who have never seen him or don't know him? And part of what he said was, I would say I'd invite him to my wedding and he would be the first dude I'd invite to my wedding. He will be there and show up. And if I was to invite him to my wedding, he'd probably be the only one to show up. I didn't know what he meant by that, actually. But he said he's a great dude. Dylan's like that. I know what he was getting at. I remember meeting Dylan for the first time. I was on the field in Norman, and Dominic was there, and he said, "Hey, I want you to meet my son." And immediately you just know the vibe is good. He looks you in the eye, calls you sir. He's very down to earth. He'll ask you questions. And that's Dylan. Dylan's just like that. I don't think people understand it. That's why I was glad that Hunter said that. That's why I was glad he did.
The thing about Dylan too is when he goes out in public, it's a big production now. I mean, there's a lot of people that come around him and he always makes time to visit with people.
He's pleasant.
Takes pictures, signs things. Like Husker basketball games, like he can't really watch the game a lot of times because there's just lines of people that want to take a picture with him or post an autograph or do whatever they want to do. And he handles that. Sue was that way as far as the attention, but Sue wasn't as approachable.
No.
Sue was about as like unapproachable.
Right. No, it wasn't the same. Dylan's really pleasant. I think of Crouch. Crouch was really pleasant. Crouch was so easy to deal with. At the Journal-Star, when he won his Heisman and the lead up to the Heisman, we asked him to do the craziest stuff. One time we asked him to get in a bin at the mail shop, get in a bin, and we'd put 100,000 letters in, and he had to stick his head through it. And we used it as a photo. All the letters he gets. It was a great
How did
idea.
you even begin to ask like Chris Anderson back then to do that? Like,
well, you could do it with Crouch. Crouch is Crouch really well. Eric's just very agreeable, and Dylan's like that. Dylan's just very agreeable.
I will give Sue credit. Like when he was here that 2009 year, every week on Mondays or Tuesdays, whatever the day was we had back then, he did that in there. He never did not.
No. And yeah, we're not dogging on Sue. Not everybody's personality.
He was a businessman though.
Yeah.
Like Sue was very business-like.
Yeah. We've dealt with all kinds of guys over the years, and I'm not saying it's bad. I wouldn't be like Crouch or Dylan. You know that. I'd be the worst probably. So it's not a character evaluation. Guys are just, there's different personalities, and Dylan just happens to have a very pleasant, warm, welcoming sort of personality, like Crouch did too.
That's why you don't like to go out with me on the road trips.
Oh God. Yeah. I mean, you're good about it.
Every time we go out to eat, then we go out and have a beer somewhere, they'll be like, "Where's Sipple?" I go, "Oh, he's back at the hotel."
Yeah. There's so much attention, but anyway, those guys, some guys are and we mentioned a couple guys. There's others than Crouch too that were really good with the media. Right. But Dylan, his team, yeah, it is. And he earns it because he works harder than anybody. That's another reason it's his team. And he happens to have a really talented right arm. So it makes sense for the receiver to go to the podium and lavish some praise on him because the ball might come your way a little bit more. So yeah, but it was Hunter, his comments were heartfelt for sure.
All right, let's move it into headline number 4 here. Before we do that, again, we're brought to you by StayHome.Care. They're there again for your loved ones to help you through all the things you might need help. Call them at 402-205-2233. Thanks again to StayHome.Care. But headline number 4, as April 16th looms, the
God.
portal madness begins. And we've already seen a couple things. I mean, from a Nebraska interest point, Mekhi Bayer left Nebraska, in December, did play in the bowl game, went to Missouri for what was assumed to be a starting job and a lot of money. Well, guess where he put himself on April 10th? In the transfer portal.
Mm-hmm.
And, from the sounds of it, he was not going to start at Missouri. They had a guy that got his JUCO years back that came back. They've had a couple of other younger players do well.
Mm-hmm.
But he went into the portal yesterday with a do not contact tab,
Mm-hmm.
meaning that he's already made his mind up where he's going to go. And, I'm guessing he has an agent.
Well, he's at North Carolina. He's visiting North Carolina.
So in North Carolina is where he's going. That's what I was getting to. But I'm sure his agent had been shopping behind the scenes, and that's how those things go so abruptly. But here's Mekhi Bayer. He was in Lincoln in December, gets to Missouri in January, leaves Missouri in April, and he could be at North Carolina with Bill Belichick playing Scott Frost at Central Florida in week 4.
It's remarkable. But it makes sense when you present it pretty well. The situation at Missouri changed. That kid's name is Tristan Newsome, got eligible, veteran player. They had a couple young guys that probably were a little better than they expected. So now, Newsome has another portal window to jump into, and North Carolina has a need. So you do it. Bayer was a good player at Nebraska, 49 tackles. He had 1 sack last year. I liked him. He wasn't great. I mean, I liked him because he was physical, but he wasn't super athletic. But a guy like that, I guess he's pretty valuable.
I had a lot of people asking, does this mean he's coming back to Nebraska? Is he going to go to Florida State with Tony White? No. And I will tell you this, even if he wanted to come back to Nebraska wouldn't take him back. They've got Shavers, they've got McGahee, they've got Watson Trent. I mean, there is a lot of players that have emerged, even like Gage Stenger and Jacob Bauer. I mean, these are 2 guys that have made a nice jump.
Javen
Wright, they're fine. And I think that position in the bowl game proved that it was just fine without Mekhi Bayer. And I think they've upgraded it since the bowl game.
I think so. I mean, their depth is good. And he's probably a depth player, although he was like a
4-man rotation player.
Yeah.
But again, if you're asking me who I'm taking over Marquise Watson Trent or Mekhi Bayer, I'm taking Marquise Watson Trent.
Okay. Yeah. I just haven't seen enough of Marquise Watson Trent to say yet.
I'm going to throw this at you. Would Mekhi Bayer be the Sun Belt Defensive Player of the Year? I don't think so.
I can't argue a hypothetical, so I'm not going to.
I mean, playing 2,500 snaps, being a 3-time first-team all-conference player in a league of, SEC type of players, because the Sun Belt has a lot of players that leave the SEC and land there. So I think they're just fine. But I want to hit on this other thing too. Nico Amaliva, the 10th. Did I get that right?
I don't know. The Tennessee quarterback. We can call him Nico from here on out.
Or you could call him Nico, I'm a leaving.
Yeah, he's not. He might be. He didn't go to practice today.
So
Friday.
Quite a deal yesterday. Pete Nakos, our colleague, reports that Nico and his camp are potentially holding out for more money, and he could entertain entering the portal on April 16th if things don't go the way they want. And it was kind of one of those stories where you almost knew too much, and it got a lot of pushback. And his camp,
Pete's story.
And because a lot of other national guys couldn't confirm that, they couldn't get that, and then his camp tried to pour water on Nakos. Well, what happens the next day?
Doesn't show up.
Nico's not at practice, and there's a reported holdout to want to be paid $4 million.
Okay, so and it all sort of makes sense. Miami's Carson Beck got $4 million. Duke's. I never even heard of. You probably have. Darian Mensah got $4 million. Have you heard of him
at Duke?
Yeah, Duke. Duke's Darian. I'm reading the Knoxville News. Duke's Darian Mensah got close to $4 million. CBS Sports reported that too. And then he's got. I mean, is he using the spring game as leverage? Their spring game, Tennessee's, is tomorrow, Saturday. So is that part of what he's doing? Okay, I'm not going to play in the spring game if you guys don't up the ante. I'm sure that's partly what it is.
And Nico's current contract is according to Pete Nakos, is between 2.2 and 2.5, and he wants to be paid around 4.
So that would be attuned to Dylan saying before there's no spring game anymore. But if there were a spring game saying, hey, I'm not playing in the spring game. I need my contract renegotiated. That's what's going on. It's like they want his contract renegotiated. And he's using other leverage, but I think one piece of leverage is they have their spring game on Saturday. And fans want to see the quarterback who led Tennessee to a 10-3 record last year, right?
And you wonder too, do they have something in their back pocket? Like as far as another school, Nico's camp.
Oh, Nico's camp. Okay.
Like, is there a suitor that could get them $4 million?
Oh God, yeah. We don't know that. Maybe Pete Nakos knows that, but we don't know that.
But you start to think of the people that could pay that kind of money.
Right. How limited is that?
Like, would Ohio State loses their court? Would Ohio State come up with that money? I mean,
they have two guys battling. Julian Sand and a guy's name I can't say off the top. They're in a battle right now. They got two high-profile guys battling.
Who's Colorado's quarterback this year?
Don't know. Could they have a high-profile guy too? But I get what you're saying. Maybe there is somebody out there that he's good. Now, you could debate me on how good. I like him. I saw him. I watched him against Ohio State. Sean, I'm going to say 6'5". He's a big, strong kid. He played volleyball, believe it or not. He's a volleyball player, good volleyball player.
We met one of his uncles in Hawaii, right?
I think so. I can't remember.
We don't know for sure if it was but a family member.
Right, family member. But anyway, I liked him in the bowl game. He's a tough runner. He's long, so his passing motion's kind of long and got some issues. But, his numbers were good. 19 touchdown passes, 5 interceptions, led them to the playoff. He could probably command $4 million. We'll see if Tennessee comes up with it.
And by the way, Mekhi Bayer just tweeted literally 5 seconds ago, coaches can now contact me.
Oh, wait a second. Really?
So maybe
it's not North Carolina?
So it's not, maybe he's trying to drive a market for himself.
There you go.
But evidently, whatever he was seeing at Missouri, he didn't like.
Right.
He knew it was not going to be what he probably thought he was walking into.
Hey, by the way, we should take a step back on this Nico story at Tennessee. This is what we kind of expected stuff like this to happen, right? Holdouts. Is this basically the first holdout that we know of?
For significant money, especially. Yeah. I mean, this
is a holdout. This is a legit holdout. And here we go. We got our first one.
And if Tennessee somehow loses him to somewhere else, oh man,
what?
Just hell's going to break loose.
Will it? Where will it break loose? At Tennessee?
Just within fan bases in Tennessee. I mean, it's just not good. It's gonna really like.
I'd like to know what fans think. I wish we had a call-in show.
I think a lot of people wish that these contracts are more stable. Like there's a penalty if you leave.
Right. 100.
Like
Sean.
It's just not that. And again, people may not like that Matt Rule has kept a tight lid on things, but he's doing it for a reason. Like there's nothing stopping anybody from calling Elijah Pritchett or Dane Key right now.
No, nothing.
And saying like, hey, we know Nebraska paid you well, but we're going to pay you more.
Right.
And if you want to come here, we'll pay you.
Right.
Like that can't be stopped right now.
It's just unrestricted, wild free agency. And why? And let's face it, why should we be surprised this is happening? Now, Tennessee fans, they have 2 other scholarship players on the roster, but one is a former 4-star recruit named Jake Merklinger. You may have heard of him. He was a freshman in 2024. He only passed for 48 yards in 2 games last year. He was the backup. Then they had a kid come in named George McIntyre. He's an early enrollee. So that's all they got behind Nico. They don't have much. I don't know. Would Josh Heupel be in panic mode right now? Is Josh Heupel get in panic mode over this?
It changes your whole job. But
he's got a good relationship. Those guys have a good relationship, according to reports. Heupel and Nico.
I've heard though, Nico's not really calling the shots. Though, I mean, it's almost like a camp of people are telling him what to do and where to go. And like on a lesser extent. I mean, I felt like that's what happened with Dante Dowdell. I felt like Dante Dowdell liked Nebraska.
I did,
but there was other forces that said you're leaving Nebraska.
Sean, I mean, there's a part of me that says if Nico is trying to just get all he can, this is wealth that can last. It's not generational wealth, obviously, but it's pretty magnificent. I kind of understand the system. They didn't create the system. His handlers didn't create the system. They're just taking advantage of it. Do you understand?
There's no guardrails.
No, they're just taking advantage of a bad situation. I don't know that I blame them for that. They can get $4 million. They can increase his deal by $2 million.
The question is, can they though? Mm-hmm. Like, who's going to come up with that money?
Right.
That's
Tennessee.
Yeah, but who's paying it?
Well, hopefully they're collective.
Tennessee's already adding money to their tickets. You know that they're one of those schools that's going to add like a NIL charge, like a fee, like a service.
I get you. There's a lot to discuss here. Okay, I got a question for you. What if Tennessee says, no, we're not paying you more? Does he go back to Tennessee and say, okay, I'll play for what I was playing for?
Will the people managing him allow that?
Yeah. I don't know.
I mean, it's wild. But yeah, Pete Nakos yesterday was so out in front of that. I mean, he took a lot of heat, but now everyone's reporting today what he had yesterday.
Because the kid did not show up for practice today. And the coaches and the players are like surprised.
And Nico's dad is evidently heading to Knoxville or in Knoxville.
Sean. Okay, I got another question for you. Are you glad you're not covering that, or do you wish you were covering it?
I kind of wish it's fun. You know what this reminds? Like, this makes like the Eric Crouch meeting at Millard North with Fred Petito and Turner Gill.
Right.
Was Solich there too at Millard North, or was it?
Yeah, Solich went to 100% Solich.
Like, this is like North. The Newcomb Crouch, but there was no money involved back then. It was just playing time.
Right. No, my recollection, and please, if the commenters want to correct me if I'm wrong, I was working at the Journal-Star. I wasn't the beat writer, but I was the number 2 guy. My recollection is Frank left practice to go to Millard North to talk to Crouch.
And drove down there.
Yeah. I think he left practice to do. Oh yeah. It was a day at the Journal-Star because we started hearing things, and it was like, then it got pretty wild. Not this wild though, because there wasn't
money,
$4 million that we're dealing with. It's really interesting, if nothing else.
Well, keep your eyes on that as it's going to develop over the weekend.
Read Pete Nakos, right?
Yeah, Pete Nakos is all over that story. Follow him on Twitter.
He was right.
He was right. He took some heat.
Right. That's a hard position to be in. I've been in it. It's hard to be in.
Sometimes when you're right on something that people don't want you to be right about, you get the emotional responses.
And you get the stories that undercut it. I didn't realize that. I hope Pete realizes that as a young reporter, because he's young. What's his? He's 20.
Because your competition's mad,
and they undercut.
And they undercut you, kind of doubling down. I mean, we see this with political reporting. It happens in all kinds of reporting.
Yeah, when I was a young reporter like Pete, I broke a couple stories, and I didn't know it at the time, but my editor said, "Get ready, the competition's going to undercut this."
Oh yeah, there's certain outlets that will do whatever they can to undermine you because you've kicked their butt.
Right. When I was young, I didn't understand it. I was like, really? And sure enough, they come with an undercut story. This isn't true. They pour cold water on it.
They don't recognize the reporting. I mean,
and that's what happened with Pete, right?
Yeah. So we'll see where that all turns. But before we get to headline 5, again, Husker on Headlines brought to you by StayHome.Care. Again, they're there for you, your loved ones, to help you with simple things like cooking, cleaning, laundry. Give them a call. It's never too early to learn more. Check them out on their website. That's StayHome.Care, not .com, but .care. They are there to help you when you can't be there. So thanks again to StayHome.Care, the title sponsor of the show. Headline 5, as we always do, odds and ends. The House case didn't really learn a lot more as the week moved on, other than they're just trying to figure out, can they grandfather these roster numbers? But outside of some places like Nebraska, is it really going to matter?
Not that much. I mean, Nebraska's sort of an outlier in that conversation. The lawyers right now, there's 2 or 3 questions that they got that Judge Claudia Wilkin instructed the lawyers to get this right and report back to me, and they'll report back to her sometime next week. I bet those lawyers are working all weekend, Sean. Billable hours, getting rich. But anyway, so yeah, not much there. We'll know more next week.
But yeah, you still can only have 115 players in training camp. So it is, when you carried like 135 or 150, you could have 30 to 40 kids that have to sit at home until you start fall camp or until classes begin. And that Nebraska had to do that for years. I mean, I still think the magic number is about 115. And then you go into your 105 with a healthy 105, and you probably have about 10 players that are on like an IR. I mean,
Okay.
that's probably what you would strive for moving forward. And to me, that's enough.
Okay, but with Wilken, what she did the other day, did it put Rule in a precarious position? Has he already had discussions with guys and said, look, there's probably not going to be a spot for you? And then this report comes out that Wilken says players can be grandfathered in. Does he have to go back to guys and say, hey, I know what I told you before, but now you might be okay?
The problem is there's still going to be guys that won't be on the 115.
Okay. Because they got too many over there.
They got like 17 more.
Yeah.
They're like at 132.
Yeah, 130, and they still are.
Yeah, so there are a few over. And look, that's going to take care of itself. There's going to be some transfer portal things that happen after spring ball ends, like there always is.
For April 16th is the day it opens.
Yeah, Wednesday, and then it's open for like 10 days.
What are we going to see from Nebraska?
Good question. I mean, luckily we do hear from Matt Rule next week, I believe on Holy Thursday, and then they're off for the weekend. So ideally, with Wednesday's movement and Thursday's movement, we'll have enough to talk to Matt Rule about some of those things next week.
Yeah. All right. That's something to keep in mind. What else is on your mind?
Odds and ends. Let's move it forward to the next topic. How about the week for Fred Hoiberg? He went out and, he lost 50 points of scoring. 4 of his top 5 scorers gone. Mm-hmm. What did he do? He added 5 more players, and they averaged a combined 53 points this past year. So he's gone out and found proven Division I production when you look at what Fred Hoiberg has been added to this roster, and it's been exciting. I mean, they win the crown. It's got some momentum from that. Price Sanford, Jamarcus Lawrence, Oogie from
Central Michigan,
Kendall Blue from St. Thomas, and then Will Cooper, Millard South product at Air Force. So they went out and got 5 players in the span of a week. Yeah,
I've watched them now. The one that intrigues me most, almost by far, is Kendall Blue. He's a 6'6" slashing guard that can guard. By the way, he's a. I think he had 34 steals. He's very strong defensively, but I don't want to emphasize that too much because he's a very good offensive player. He averaged 12 points a game at St. Thomas, Minnesota. But his game looks beautiful. He's left-handed. He can shoot threes. He's got a good mid-range, gets to the rim. He looks like a starter. I could see he and Jamarcus Lawrence being the starting backcourt right now. Now you're going to say, what about Esigian? What about Sam? I think those guys, you might have pushed a couple guys. Esigian's the question. I don't know. I'd lean towards, listen to me, setting Fred's lineup in April. I'd just be very intrigued by Lawrence and Blue in the backcourt because they both guard really well.
Esigian, Hoiberg, and even Cale Jacobson, they almost strike me as better guys off the bench.
Thank you so much for saying that, so we don't have to argue. I totally agree. I love Esigian off the bench.
Esigian's like a version of what C.J. Wilcher was off the bench.
Yeah.
You just bring him in and he just starts shooting.
Instant offense.
Just boom, 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 boom.
I love Esigian off the bench, and I like the other guys because they're better.
Wilcher was like the best 6-man in the league.
Yeah.
And Esigian could be that type of impact.
Better.
And I think Hoiberg's energy is better suited off the bench.
100. So now we'll see.
And Jacobson. Jacobson's going to get, when PBA reconvenes with fans for basketball, Jacobson will be very popular.
He'll be a face from Ashland right down the road. So, yeah, I like it. And I watched that kid from Central Michigan. I can't say his name.
Oogie.
he's different than Andrew Morgan. There's some similarities. That's what the comp is. Andrew Morgan, he shoots it way better from the 3-point line than Andrew Morgan. This kid's a good 3-point shooter. He's good around the rim. He's not really athletic.
Where's he from in Europe?
Lithuania.
Lithuania. Okay.
Yeah, he's good around the rim. He's not a high flyer though, Sean. Don't expect a guy that's got a tomahawk dunk it all the time. He's not that guy. But he's a good defender. Good defender. He blocks a lot of shots. I mean, I like him. I think you'll like him. I like Blue though. And that Will Cooper, pure shooter. That's what he is. He's got to put him in the corner, get him loose. When like Jamarcus drives, kick out, boom, Will Cooper shooter. That's what he is.
It's just crazy of all the in-state kids that come here, like the ones that you would not even realize are out there are the ones that come to Nebraska.
Yeah.
I mean,
you didn't know Will Cooper.
No.
I think he might be a really good find because he was hurt in high school a lot. Probably went to Air Force, had to make up some ground, and then late in the season he got going. It strikes me as like a good pickup from a scouting standpoint. Like, hey, we're going to get on this guy first. We know what he's about. Other teams don't because he was hurt. He had been hurt. And now he's not hurt. And he had 21 against Fresno. And he had a good late season. Let's get him. He
played in high school ball for my former teammate, Tim Lucian.
Yeah. What's Lucian say about him?
Loved him. I mean, Tim's a great guy, hardworking guy, one of the hardest working people I know. And, you know, he spoke very highly of him. And he's very excited to have a Husker in this program. And
he's just, and the kid's a shooter. And I like what Fred's done because he's added shooters. I mean, you don't think of Jamarcus Lawrence. I do. I think of him as a shooter because he started shooting it well at Nebraska. And he shot 39% from the 3-point line at Rhode Island. I love the Jamarcus Lawrence pickup because he's so fast. I mean, he's so fast with the ball. And again, it's exciting to me to think of him and Blue in the backcourt. I think it'd look really good.
All right, baseball at Iowa.
Iowa.
We say it every week. Another big weekend for Will Bolt. They have had a great week thus far. They took 2 of 3 from Rutgers, their first conference series win. Then they went on the road and beat a ranked Kansas team in a midweek game. So they've put together some baseball this week. Can it translate to kind of a rivalry Big Ten series? This is as big of a conference series as there is for Nebraska because they need to try to get a series win. They're not going to. I don't think they could sweep a team like Iowa, who's 10-2 right now. But I think
are they 10-2 or 12-3? I think they're 12.
I mean, they're one of the top teams in the Big Ten record wise.
Yeah.
Now Nebraska's probably played the toughest schedule, arguably in the Big Ten.
See, and that matters. But yeah, they're going. Nebraska's 4-8. I think I was 12-3. So I don't know what to make of it. I don't have a great read on Will's team. It's hard to read them. I mean, they've been inconsistent.
Their offense came alive at KU.
Right.
I mean, that's what won them the game. But yeah, this is a big one.
Hey, they've been inconsistent. That's the best way to describe them.
And then finally, the news at Creighton continues. We had the Bernthal Booth situation and Terry Pettit getting involved and calling out their AD, Marcus Blossom. Well, then on the basketball side, Alan Huss, former J, that coached also with Greg McDermott at North Carolina High Point, is coming back to Creighton to be an assistant for McDermott to be the, quote, head coach in waiting.
And there's the timetable on McDermott leaving is indefinite. There's no, I don't know.
This strikes me as kind of one of those like Tom Osborne going into Bill Burns' office saying Frank Solch is going to be my successor, and then walking out at that point. And,
well, Nebraska fans probably hope it's that because then Creighton's program isn't quite the same, right?
But I do think McDermott has enough leverage, obviously, over Blossom, who doesn't appear to be a well-liked character.
Oh, he doesn't.
You don't hear anything.
McDermott is.
And McDermott is a legend at Creighton.
He's a legend who takes his team to the NCAA tournament virtually every year, has been to the Elite Eight, Sweet 16s. I mean, the program's in really good shape. I've been interested by Creighton fans seem to embrace this, which they know more than I do. I'm a little surprised by it. If I were, from my vantage point, my thought is you're losing McDermott. Or he's leaving, apparently. You don't know how that's going to go. You know what you got with McDermott. In fact,
key
go ahead.
is the roster attrition stuff. Like by doing this, you're not going to have like a blow up where Indiana lost its whole roster.
I see.
When McDermott quote retires in March or whenever that would be, like down the road, and you don't know who his successor is going to be, and you operate some search, you lose every player on your team at that point.
Yeah, now you don't necessarily.
And now you can keep the stability. So I think what they're doing there does make some sense.
Okay. Huge news at Creighton. I mean, what a week at Creighton. Oh.
Yeah, their volleyball coach.
And I got to be full disclosure. I haven't looked into it that close, this Huss thing. I don't know what he did at High Point. It must have been pretty good, though, right?
Yeah, really good. His record is outstanding. You think about Creighton, though, at one point it seemed like Darren DeVries even could have been a guy for them, but obviously the timing wasn't right. And he left Drake for West Virginia, and then West Virginia now for Indiana. But DeVries easily could have been a guy there for them, too.
Right. I don't know. I wonder I'd love to know in the agent world what the discussions were with DeVries as it applied to Indiana and Creighton. Like, did DeVries know this was happening? Usually those guys know. The agents know what's happening. Did DeVries know this was going to happen at Creighton? And then Indiana pops open. How do you turn down the Indiana job? How do you turn it down?
Yeah, you don't. I mean, that's a hell of the NIL you have at Indiana.
Right. Now, guys have turned it down. I think McDermott might have turned it down, actually. Guys do, but it can't be that easy to turn that job down. It's not a perfect place, though. It's hard, as we've seen. There is money. There is a fan base like Nebraska. You do it. Everybody does it. They compare it to Nebraska football. For some reason, it hasn't clicked in a long time.
Yeah, like if you're a listener of our show in Iowa, they just laugh like, oh, here's Nebraska again. They're getting all these roster additions. They're winning the offseason, and we'll just beat you again.
Right, exactly. So there you go. A lot going, Sean. So much going on, and then we got practice tomorrow.
Maybe a scrimmage, but I'll tell you, the NIL Nico story is probably the biggest story right now in college football.
It is. Everybody's watching it because this is what we kind of expected. Didn't really see a lot of it or any of it, and here it is, a holdout.
Yeah, it's one thing when it's like a $200,000-$300,000 type thing, but when you're talking $4 million,
we're seeing a holdout right now. We're seeing a genuine holdout. He missed practice on Friday. Here we go.
Well, lots to keep up on. Check us out again at HuskerOnline.com. For Steve Sipple, I'm Sean Callahan signing off here for Husker Online Headlines.